Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Um, Jay, do you want to go ahead and get started? I don't see a lot of people on the call, but I'm not sure that's gonna change.
Yeah, it's a fairly small PR. I think we can get started.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, my voice is a little bit on and off, so let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All right. So this PR is a fairly small change. Let me give a context on the PR first, and then I'll go on the PR. So in size specification, we have this bunch of key value strings, and essentially they are used to control system initialization. If you go in the size switch, right? So you'll see that total, like so far there was 16, now I've added one. And these key value pair basically control the system behavior during the init time. Why do we need these key value pairs? Because there are certain characterization in the hardware you want to bring, and that by the time your switch init happens, it might be late. Uh, uh, so for those reasons, this concept of key value pair exists, right? So that's the background. Now we have this feature which we call as a hierarchical ECMP, right? In that, and this was introduced a while back, and in that feature, basically, you do the first level lookup, which gives you next level resolution, which is, underlay next hop group, and then you do another lookup in that, and that gives you the next hop, actual next hop resolution. So that is controlled through the flag, which we call as a hierarchical next hop. Uh, and basically in this PR, we want to introduce a key value pair, and the rationale for it is that the hardware memory can be carved in a certain way depending on how the implementation is. And whatever specific way you would like to initialize the next stop memory, if you do it during the runtime by the NOS, by the time NOS says hierarchical ECMP is enabled or disabled, that may be too late, right? By the time the system init has happened, chip init has happened. So for that, this key value pair is introduced, which essentially is saying that either enable it or disable it, right? So basically, there's a value which is provided, and it's basically enable disable kind of value. Uh, Let me go on the view file. Okay, so right here. Sorry, it's down. These are the telemetry. Okay, here it is. There. Right. So if you see here, so these are and there is no data type associated with it, so it's kind of implied. And typically what we do, we kind of create a binding of this, unspoken binding of this with some other attribute. So that's why you see these strings, keys, and you'll see that there is a corresponding attribute you can find, let's say in queues, etc. Okay. So that's the new key which is introduced, and the corresponding uh, attribute for this is in its next top group. So let me go there. Stop. here. And this one, if you see, the data type for that is a bool. So kind of, the data type in the key will be created as a bool, right? So that's the uh, workflow we have followed. I have not tried to change it by introducing any data type, etc. So that's the change. So this is the attribute which actually controls the hardware memory layout during the runtime. And this one, we want to control it during the system init time using key value pair. Okay. And value will be either enabled or disabled. So that's the PR. There's not too much of a change in it. Any questions on this? If not, then I think they just need that trivial. I see a few folks already have reviewed it, and thanks.
Jay, yeah, I have one question on it. So I see that most of the other ones, like number of CPU queues, number of queues, have a switch attribute associated with it. So it can become fairly clear what the value means. Here it's like a next top group attribute, which is, a per next top group. Is this specific next top group doing hierarchical or not?
I think it's a system level. It's a switch level. It's not at uh, this one basically is going to control uh, you know the the memory allocations in the hardware at a system level, not at a next top group level.
Right. So because the attribute that's associated with this is the next up group level, to me, it's just this alone doesn't make it clear what
Okay.
it's controlling. So it may be worth having a comment like this enables next top group hierarchies or something like that. And then maybe also something like, what is the input? Is it a 0, 1 integer? Is it a true false string? Something that describes like the intended use there. I assume it's
Yeah.
like 0 and 1 for true and false for this. 'Cause
Yeah.
it
No,
doesn't
I
look like
think
it's a scalar account. If it is a
right.
scalar account, then it should be, yeah.
Correct. No, I think that's a fair point. And even when I was looking at it, I was thinking it too. I just didn't want it to go and change it the way it's defined right now. But let me show it to you, and we can do that. I think that's. Let me see how it's done for other. Yeah. So there is some notion of comment. It's just one line comment. Yeah, I think I can add that. Was that Jason?
Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
would
just
cover
yeah,
it.
I can add that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because, like, for instance, if you do 0,
Uh,
1 and we do true and false string, then, obviously
true,
something,
true.
user couldn't use the same config file between both. So as long as it's
Yeah,
clear how to configure it, that should be good.
yeah. And not only that, I mean, your point is valid. It's a switch level behavior. It does not come off just from the string.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe worth also considering having a read-only switch attribute to read that back. But I don't think that's
The key, well, is there such thing which exists today?
so. I know some of the other things have, for example, number of queues and number of CPU queues also have a size switch attribute, number of CPU queues and number of queues that are read-only. So I do know that does exist for some of these other ones, that there's a read-only attribute associated with them. Um, I don't think all of them have that though. Like I think some of these like warm boot read files and write files,
Mm,
I don't think they have it. So I don't, it's a little inconsistent there.
right. Like this one has a pretty elaborate explanation, so we can
Yeah.
follow that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Read only attributes. I didn't see a ask coming from the Sonic guys. Um, I can add it if that's needed. Do you think that it will be needed?
I don't think it's needed. It more, I guess it would have some debuggability benefit that if you needed to, like, for example,
Right.
dump the entire state, you could see what was actually configured there. I don't think otherwise you would. unless you have a separate debug dump API or something that prints out what all your psi keys are. Otherwise, you wouldn't really know how it was configured.
True. So how do you? Okay, now this is where I'm going in unknown charter territory. So today, how do we figure out what are the key value pairs values are? Is there a psi API, or how do we do that today? I mean, that's a valid point.
Yeah, so I don't think there is one. Of course, psi has the API to go read the key value pairs from the NOS. But some of them, like for example, CPU queues in the psi switch.h, there is a attribute for it. So there's a psi key, for setting, for example, the number of CPU queues. I don't know how frequently it's used, but there's like psi key num CPU queues, and there's a psi switch attribute, number of CPU queues, and the same thing, psi key num queues, and then psi switch attribute, and so on. Even I think config file has
a corresponding read attribute.
Let me see if some of these other ones, because mostly these are scaled. Num lags. Yeah, some of these don't have it. For example, I don't see one for lag. Oh, I do see one for lag members and lag. So yeah, so a lot of these scale ones do have a corresponding read-only attribute. It looks like that came in along with the key like 10 years ago or something that was originally introduced.
I think one thing we can do, I mean, your input is valid and it's good. Instead of trying to create a switch attribute, we can introduce a new API. We have to think it through, which is gonna give you, which is a read-only API to give the key values information.
Yeah, something like that would be
right? And then we are not doing this ad hoc method that wherever we add new key, then we add a corresponding read attribute, right? Then naturally that API gives you values for all the keys, not just one.
That makes sense. And then it would also be possible to see which ones the psi adapter actually read and
Correct.
was using.
Yeah, I think that's a good add a point. I'll open a tracking PR, right, and leave it hanging till we work on that.
Okay.
Right. I mean, that's a good point because, and I'll also talk to my psi team today. How do they debug this part? I think they have a separate internal debug channel to read this, but let me ask them as well.
Yeah, and it probably makes sense also that these are dumped as part of example, the psi debug dump. There's that API you can that dumps all of the debug information, and having that in there is also would always be good as well. But yeah, it makes sense to have something like that too.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea. So we should at least address it while we are thinking about it.
Okay. So for this PR, we'll just limit to some documentation comment and.
Right. I think you can add the comment, and I will reply that we'll open a new PR and track it as a new work item.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. No, that was good. I appreciate it. Okay, I think that's all Tejaswini I have today. Fairly small.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Jay. So for this PR, maybe Jason, could you review as well?
Yes, I'll put the review comment on there.
Yeah. Thank you. Anybody wanted to bring up anything? Okay. If not, we're done. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining.
All right. Thank you. Bye.